What's up guys, my name's David, welcome back to the channel, and happy Halloween! Today we're talking about my favorite horror movie of all time, and one of my favorite movies of all time, Scream. Today I am joined by another Scream fanatic, Jennifer Vega. This is also her favorite horror movie, as well as her favorite movie of all time. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining this collab, and also if you guys aren't subscribed to Jennifer's channel, you are missing out on some really amazing movie content. She is so close to 1,000 subscribers, and if for some reason you're not already subscribed to her, go do that right now. Without wasting any time, let's get into this review. I recently had the privilege of seeing this movie in a packed theater with a bunch of Scream fans. This movie was already super special to me, but that viewing experience really elevated this movie for me. In fact, I think it's my second favorite movie now. Starting with what this movie does so well, it beautifully nails what it wants to be. This set out to be a clever parody on the horror genre, and it nailed being that. This is a very self-aware movie that's still insanely sharp and well made. Right off the bat, you have the iconic opening scene, one of my favorite opening scenes of all time in any genre. It truly has no right being that good, but it just works so well, and it could easily be cheesy, and in some ways it is, but it still stands the test of time. You have the iconic quotes, it establishes this grounded yet self-aware style, and on a first watch, it's actually pretty intense. At its core, this is a very well-written movie. All of the accolades this movie receives can be traced back to the writing. The timeless nature of this film, the great characters, the quotable lines, the mystery, the way the plot unfolds, all of it is just such excellent writing. For a movie that's a parody of a genre, the characters are still so amazing. Great horror characters are kind of a rarity in this genre because for the most part, characters in horror movies are there just to be killed and scared. And when there is an attempt to flesh out a character, it's very surface level stuff. These characters feel lived in. My favorite character in here has got to be my main man Randy. He is just the quintessential film nerd and he is awesome. And he's just such a great meta device for this movie. Like all of the commentary of the horror genre can be used through this character, and it's once again just great writing. Once again, without spoiling anything, at the end there's this commentary about basically horror movies causing violence or just movies causing violence, and that's still a very relevant conversation. So the fact that this movie was talking about that back then, this movie was ahead of its time, it really was. Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott is such a great character. She truly is just a perfect main character. And once again, no spoilers, but the way they write her character and they weave the backstory of her mother with relation to the killer, such good writing once again. Going back to my theater watching experience, one of the big things that I was able to take in while watching this movie on such a massive screen was honestly the little moments. The little moments kind of make this movie. And I could tell I was not the only one who was like really into the little moments. When Tatum says, "Bam, Sid, super bitch," and does this little motion, a bunch of people, like I caught at least 5 people do that little motion simultaneously. Like the little moments of this movie are so special to so many people, including myself. Also, another highlight of this movie for me is the relationship between Gale Weathers and Dewey. Such a great, unconventional little romance right there. And it leads to some really funny moments. And overall, this is a funny movie. I would consider this a funny movie, but it still balances its humor really well. Like when there is moments that it can be scary, it leans into that scare factor. I hate comparing things in the MCU to make one thing look better, but I'm gonna do it anyways. In the MCU or with comic book movies nowadays, whenever there's like a tense scene, it's interrupted by a joke, and it happens in this movie, but I don't know what it is. It just feels immensely more natural in this movie. Once again, no spoilers, but if you know what I'm talking about, the final confrontation, there is like, it's dark, it's really dark, but also it's hilarious. The way they walk that line is so smart, and I honestly don't know how they did it and made it seem so seamless. I could talk about this movie for hours, but overall this is such a cleverly made good time with great commentary on the horror genre. The writing is excellent in all departments, leading to not only a very enjoyable film, but to a timeless one as well. This is without a doubt my favorite horror movie of all time and one of my favorite movies of all time. Scream is absolutely, positively as amazing as Toby. Now I'm going to pass it on over to Jennifer.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer and I'm so happy that David asked me to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, Scream, with him, and we're going to get into all of the things that I love about this movie, and trust me, there's a lot of things that I love about this movie. I have the 3 movie collection right here, and yeah, let's just get into talking about Scream. Definitely my favorite thing that this movie does is how effortlessly it's able to just talk about all of these horror movie tropes in a way that doesn't feel cheesy, but it's genuinely integrated into all the dialogue in a really clever way. They talk about horror movie tropes, how to survive a horror movie. Even the killer himself says things like, "Oh, you should never say who's there because yada yada yada, you know, you're gonna probably die." Really clever things that horror movie fans understand, but even casual horror movie movie watchers or people that don't even watch horror movies probably understand. And that's one of the best things about it. It doesn't just, it doesn't just relate to one group of people. It relates to an entire spectrum of people, and that's one of the coolest things about it. The casting for this movie too is one of my favorite castings in any horror movie ever, and these characters, they're all so likable, and how I describe them is that they are my comfort characters. Even characters in the movie that aren't super likable and aren't really great people, it still feels nice to have them around in the movie, and I can't say that about many horror movies, and it's just brilliant that they kind of formed this friendship, and it almost makes you feel like you're part of this friendship. And I obviously have to praise Neve Campbell here for Sydney, and what I really like about her performance is how she's able to just sell on emotion and make it realistic as possible. Oftentimes, final girls in horror movies sometimes feel like their reactions are over-exaggerated, or I guess I should say they don't feel natural, but I think in this movie, genuinely her reactions feel real. Things that she does also feel realistic. One of my favorite things that happens in the movie, without going into spoilers, Sydney will mention a horror movie trope that happens in horror movies where like the character is being dumb, and then the next scene happens and she proceeds to do the exact same thing that she wouldn't do, and it's like a natural human reaction, an instinct, because as movie watchers, I feel like often we're like, I would never do this if I were in a horror movie, but realistically, probably we would also not be that smart in a situation where we're scared of something. So it's just a little detail that I really like that the writer did in this movie. And speaking of the writer, Kevin Williamson is one of my favorite horror writers ever, and paired with one of my favorite directors of all time, Wes Craven, they really just brought magic to this movie. Also gotta praise the other cast. Courtney Cox as Gale Weathers, David Arquette as Dewey. I love them together. They're really funny. I love the banter that they always have, and it continues throughout the entire franchise, which I love. And I also love Skeet Ulrich as Billy. And probably my favorite cast member in this movie, and like the standout in my opinion, Matthew Lillard as Stu. He's incredible, and especially when we get to the third act, he just really shines. I love his performance so much. It's both funny and terrifying at the same time. And the kills in this movie are extremely brutal, but they work so well. And this movie is one of those movies that's a perfect mix of comedy and horror at the same time, which is so hard to come by, and that's why I'm gonna praise Kevin Williamson. He was able to do it in a way where I could laugh at the same time, but in the next scene I could completely be in suspense, and it worked perfectly. I feel like I'm all over the place talking about Scream, but like it's just there's so many things in my mind that I want to say, and like my brain does not know where to go. But I also did forget to give credit to Jamie Kennedy as Randy. Randy's actually my favorite character in the Scream franchise, and I love him so much. I feel like Randy is so relatable in a sense for horror movie fans. He's the one that's kind of like, this is what you should and shouldn't do. The Ghostface reveal in this movie is one that I really like. The first time I watched it, I wasn't really genuinely surprised, but I think it's one of my favorite reveals because it works so well. And I just like how they connected to things that were established in the movie earlier on. I think in the script they made sure to focus on details, and when something was said, even if you didn't think it was going to be important, like backstories and stuff, they were going to come to play, and it totally made sense, and it worked for a really cohesive and nice story as well. And what I like about this movie is that yes, Scream continues. Like I said, I have the 3 collection set right here, and there's a 4th one, and there's about to be a 5th one, which I'm so excited about. But this movie stands completely on its own. It does not end in a way where it's like, oh, I can't enjoy it because I have to watch the other one right after. This movie stands 100% on its own. I can watch it. I literally just finished watching it and it was a blast. So it's just one that you can just put on and watch, and you don't even have to see the rest of the movies to enjoy, which is awesome. I love that about this movie. Thank you so much, David, for having me on and doing this review. It really, really means a lot that you asked me because I love talking about Scream. Any chance that I get to talk about it, I'm so down. So thank you again so very much. I hope you guys really enjoyed what I had to say about Scream, and I can't wait to hear what everybody else has to say about it down below.
Jennifer, once again, thank you so much for joining this collab. Thank you so much for watching this review. If you enjoyed, please drop a like and consider subscribing, and let me know in the comment section down below what is your favorite horror movie. I will see you in the next video. May the force be with you.